This program has been made possible by the following sponsors. The U.S. Resiliency Council, where our vision is a world in which we not only have a low impact on the environment, but the environment has a low impact on us. The USRC's mission is to create more resilient communities, one building at a time. Learn more at usrc.org. Derived from NASA technology, Taylor Devices develops energy dissipation products in buildings, bridges, and structures around the world, specializing in shock and vibration control since 1955. More information is available at taylordevices.com. DLR Group is a global integrated design firm whose brand promise is to elevate the human experience through design. Learn more at dlrgroup.com. SidePlate Systems provides bolted moment frame design solutions for steel building structures that saves steel and erection time. More information at sideplate.com.
Well, there's no question that the big one is coming. The question is when.
Bam. Immediately that earthquake occurs and it's all hands on deck.
All units responding to this structure.
A large earthquake will be devastating.
It does happen and it has happened and it's going to happen again.
We have zero warning.
Roads are going to be down, bridges are going to be down, floods.
If things don't work, then we're going to go back to the 80s.
People that stay behind and don't prepare are just asking for more trouble.
If the people in the hospital are not working, there's people that can die.
What will you do when the earth shakes? What emergency plans are in place? Stay with us on The Whistle. Are we ready for the big one?
Welcome to The Whistle. We're at El Cajon Pass. El Cajon Pass is a narrow stretch between the San Gabriels and the San Bernardino Mountains. It connects Southern California to Utah, Nevada, Northern California, and beyond.
The ports of San Pedro and Long Beach move close to $300 billion worth of cargo trade every year. That's about 1/3 of U.S. market share.
A lot of this gets shipped through the Inland Empire and San Bernardino.
This is one of the busiest stretches in the country. Railroads, freeways, gas lines, they all cut through the Cajon Pass. And guess what? The San Andreas cuts right through it. In fact, we're on the fault line right now. And experts tell us that there could be a 20 to a 30 feet slit all at once. This could leave us isolated and cut off from Northern California and other parts of the country. Are we ready for the big one?
This is the San Andreas, a 750-mile-long fault that cuts through California. These mountains are the Temblor Range. In Spanish, temblor means earthquake. The San Andreas was formed around 28 million years ago. The Pacific plate moves northwest at about 2 inches a year, and the North American plate heads south at about 1 inch a year. By matching rocks, scientists estimate that the San Andreas has slid at least 350 miles since it formed.
This is the active trace of the San Andreas fault zone. Well, we're seeing evidence of 1,000 years of sideways motion through probably 20 or 30 major earthquakes. The last big earthquake on this fault happened in 1857, and the ground moved 31 feet sideways.
And you can measure that precisely?
Yes, because we've tested the soils and been able to date those with carbon-14, and because of very accurate mapping done by these seismologists, they're able to tell us that story.
Has the fault been moving even before that?
The fault has been moving for 22 million years. And so this fault was traced out, and it was discovered that it starts down at the Bay of California and goes all the way up to Cape Mendocino. And then it was discovered that there were rock types that were offset along this fault. If you go to Gorman, there's some rocks over there called the Nenach Volcanics. Those same rocks are found 350 miles away. And you restore them, and it fit like a glove.
The San Andreas has 3 sections. The northern part runs through the Santa Cruz Mountains and the San Francisco Peninsula. The last big one there was in 1906, the San Francisco earthquake. The central part of the San Andreas, from Hollister to Parkfield, continuously slides or creeps with small earthquakes. Chances of the big one there are small. Tension is gradually released. The southern part of the San Andreas goes from Parkfield to the Salton Sea, all along the Traverse Range, the San Gabriel and San Bernardino Mountains.
The big earthquakes happen approximately every 150 years. So the last big earthquake was in 1857. That means, statistically, we should have had a big earthquake in 2008, right? Well, here it is 10 years later, so we're overdue. And the more time that goes by without an earthquake, more and more force is being stored up in those rocks. So this is not a good thing.
The U.S. Geological Survey predicts a 99% chance of a 6.7 magnitude earthquake or larger hitting the Southern California region in the next 30 years. The California Seismic Commission determined that the likelihood of a 7.5 or above is 46%. This shake could be 45 times larger than the Northridge earthquake of 1994.
So San Bernardino is probably one of the most vulnerable places to be in a major earthquake. It sits on soft sediment. So think about the mountains have risen up, rainstorms come every year, silt kind of fills up the basin. It's going to shake wildly like this, and that's what will happen in San Bernardino.
The 10 and the 15 freeways dance. The mountains, made of granite, absorb the impact better than the loose soil. Palm Springs would be displaced by 4 feet, but the grand prize goes to El Cajon Pass. It would have a displacement of 10 feet. Last time the big one hit in California was in 1906 in the Great San Francisco Earthquake and Fire. More damage was caused by the fires that ravaged on for days than by the earthquake and aftershocks.
All earthquakes can trigger fires. When we had the Northridge earthquake in '94, there were 111 fires that were big enough that the fire department was called in and had to fight them. The estimate is the San Andreas is going to cause 1,600 fires, and 1,200 of which will grow to need more than one company. And we don't have that many fire companies in Southern California.
Imagine if it's the Santa Ana winds.
Right. If we have this during the Santa Ana winds, we have the real potential that we won't get the fires in control.
When the ground shakes, what are you supposed to do? How will the fire department respond? Will the coast be hit by a tsunami? Tsunamis can cause great devastation. 250,000 dead in Indonesia, 20,000 dead in Japan. What is the risk of a tsunami in California?
So there's no tsunami risk in Los Angeles?
No, there's not a tsunami risk because the San Andreas is onshore. To get a tsunami, you have to change the shape of the seafloor. You often see swimming pools that get emptied by earthquakes, right? They get sloshing and half the water comes on out. Well, Santa Monica Bay is going to do a certain amount of that too. It's going to be about a 45-minute wave going back and forth across the Santa Monica Bay, and it'll be a few feet high. Liquefaction is a situation where you have a loose soil, and then when you shake the loose soil, it compresses. So essentially you get a temporary quicksand. Quicksand does a really bad job of holding up buildings. Riverside is a place, along the beach is another place. Here in the Coachella Valley, especially as you get farther south in the valley, are all places with loose soils.
California today has a lot of experience battling fires, but are we ready for the big one? To know what plans are in place, we interviewed the San Bernardino County Fire Department.
So what is the current consensus now? Because you see videos of earthquakes and people are running out of buildings all the time. That's not what you're supposed to do?
First thing you want to do is stop what you're doing, duck, cover, and hold on until the shaking stops.
Fully involved attached garage on the Charlie side.
In California, most people killed in an earthquake are actually killed running outside the building. They're killed on the margin of the building where something from the outside, like glass or brick, can fall on them.
If the earthquake happens at night and people are at their homes, what should they do?
You should stay in bed, cover your head with as many pillows as you can until that shaking stops, and then roll out of bed and find cover. Another thing is to have some shoes and a flashlight very close to your bed, so when you call him out of bed that there's broken glass and debris on the ground, you can negotiate to get out of your house.
In an earthquake, the big shake happens, but then for several days afterwards, you can have aftershocks. Those aftershocks can be almost as large as the main shock itself. And if that happens to a building that's already been damaged by the main shock, then you could have an immediate collapse.
What are some of these signs to see if something's in imminent danger?
Most noticeably, you look to see if it's leaning. If it's not straight up and down and plumb, that means it suffered a lot of damage. If most of the windows are broken, that means the building is moved around a lot and may have a lot of internal damage. Large cracks that you can see through. Those are all big signs that the building may be on the verge of collapse.
An event like an earthquake is so different than many other emergencies we face in that we have zero warning. Even a wildland fire, we know we have a start, we can see the wildland fire approaching community. It allows us a reflex time to bring resources into the community to protect the structures. But an earthquake, bam, immediately that earthquake occurs and it's all hands on deck.
The all units responding to the structure fire on Waterman.
The land is shaking. What do you do?
The captain at this fire station will get up, check on his crew, make sure everybody's okay. Second, they're going to take all their apparatus that's stored inside. They're going to pull them out away from the buildings in case there's a collapse. Third, they're going to get on that apparatus and they're going to be driving through their assigned area and they're going to be doing an inventory of damage. Now, what's extraordinarily difficult for the fire crews is they are going to come upon damage. They are going to come upon houses that may be collapsed. They may come across citizens that run out to them and screaming, "My grandmother or my daughter stuck in this building." But the key for the fire engine is not to stop and engage that incident within a much larger incident.
How severe could a large earthquake be?
A large earthquake will be devastating in the Southern California region because of the population and because of the reliance we have on everything going through the Cajon Pass. In a disaster, resources are scarce, and speaking with one voice and coordinating it from a single point puts everybody on the same page. We coordinate in the 30,000-foot level of making sure those resources, when they're ordered, get here.
How are they going to get here if the Cajon Pass is broken or the 10 freeway is broken?
They fly in, first of all, on usually military aircraft, and then truck them in. Everybody's going to be concentrating on clearing those roads to be able to get our commodities and our water and our food and whatever we need, rescue teams, into San Bernardino County.
Remember, in an earthquake, not only is the power knocked out, but the water systems can be knocked out. This fire engine behind us only holds 500 gallons of water in its tank. In perspective, we literally could run out of water in 20 seconds. You're going to have limited resources in the event of a large earthquake. But you have to make a decision as a chief officer, whoever's in charge, an instant commander on that incident, whether you're going to fight the fires, or are you going to be helping your citizens evacuate, or are you going to be digging people out of the rubbish? We may decide that building's on fire, but it's not a threat to anything else. Let it burn.
These are what they call the jaws of life?
Jaws of life, yeah. This tool here is a spreading tool. It hooks up here with hoses. We put it into a narrow spot and start prying the doors open a little at a time. These are gigantic hydraulic scissors. I can twist this handle, open it up, and crush and cut metal using these blades right here.
So can I open the door out or something?
This would cut through a post, like when you're in your car, that post that's by your windshield, they'll snip right through that. This tool here is called a hydraulic ram. And I can put it at any angle, twist this, and it'll start extending out.
Okay.
And stretching it out so I can make the opening hold so I can get the patient out of the car.
Okay, and I would imagine that in case of an earthquake, these tools would be used to like help people get out of the buildings or the doors or whatever.
Absolutely, use it to lift concrete. If we were in a collapse situation like in a parking structure or something like that, we could use these to lift up. We'll put cribbing wood to lift it up a little higher and keep it safe so we can get the people out of it.
So how important is it to be self-sufficient?
It's extremely important. If you're not self-sufficient, if you're not resilient, then you're taking resources away and allowing other people to potentially die.
When the big one strikes, will the shelters be ready and will the hospitals be prepared? Just in the city of Los Angeles, the LA Times estimates there are over 13,000 buildings that are vulnerable to collapse or major damage when the big one hits. The list of vulnerable buildings gets even larger if you include the Inland Empire. Experts anticipate that the greatest loss of life will be precisely in these buildings in the cities of Riverside and San Bernardino. When the big one hits, there could be thousands, if not tens of thousands of displaced. Are we ready to shelter that many people?
We can ramp up to open up shelters, and in some cases, mega shelters, where we can have hundreds, nearly thousands of people in one location, and we can provide for their basic needs, where we have trailers with cots and food and water all ready to go, that all we have to do is just hitch it up and then report to where it is that we need to go. The Red Cross actually does collect 40% of the nation's blood supply. If California had a 7.2 magnitude earthquake, we are capable of actually collecting blood here. Now, we'd probably do it in our Pomona facility, which is just outside of the IE, but it's close enough for people to get to. I was deployed 6 times in 2017. Every single disaster is different. A hurricane has flooding, and with flooding, there's an evacuation, and people can't get to their homes because of the floods. In the case of a wildfire, you're told to evacuate well before the flames get there, and then it's just a waiting game. In an earthquake, if you were at the home, you pretty much know if your home is damaged, and you have to wait for the authorities to come through and say whether your home is livable or not.
How important is it to be prepared?
Preparedness is the #1 thing that's going to help you get through a natural disaster like an earthquake.
What are some of the things that people can do to do their homework to be better prepared?
A gallon of water per person per day, meals that are ready to eat. If you have canned items, that you have a manual can opener. Do you have enough medication on hand? Do you have enough cash on hand? Hey, if there's a large earthquake, as soon as the shaking stops, who's gonna take care of grandma? Who's got the kids? Who's making sure that we have a safe place to get to outside of the home? Do you have a plan on who to contact if the networks here aren't working? If all you can do is get a text out, who are you gonna text? We suggest that you text someone out of state. They'll get all the information and they'll let everybody know who's been accounted for and who hasn't been accounted for. These are the things that you need to think about before the shaking happens. In the immediate response, our first job is sheltering. If you don't have a safe place to stay, everything else doesn't matter.
To learn what plans are in place at one of these shelters, we interviewed Bruce Barron, Chancellor of the San Bernardino Community College District.
San Bernardino Community College District is designated by the Red Cross and by local emergency agencies as a go-to facility for the community. We have 2 colleges, San Bernardino Valley College and Crafton Hills College, which is up in Yucaipa. Valley College has been around for over 90 years and is really a fixture in the community. But there's no question that the big one is coming. The question is when. And at San Bernardino Community College District, we take the safety of our faculty and staff and students and our community very, very seriously. It started with identifying the San Jacinto Fault that runs right through campus. Down this way, I mean, we are standing on the San Jacinto Fault.
This is the fault line.
This is the fault line.
This is where the earth can move.
Yes, this is where the earth can move. All of our new construction has been moved at least 100 feet off of the fault line.
It seems like the fault line goes right to the auditorium.
We retrofitted that building so it can withstand a major earthquake, but yet when you see it from the outside and the inside, it retains all of its original elegance and beauty.
Earthquake happens, what can we expect?
First of all, stay calm. Follow the advice of the officials that come to help you. There will be people who are trained in the building to get you out safely, so don't panic. And also read ahead. Safety is everyone's responsibility. It can't just be one person's responsibility. So it's your responsibility, it's my responsibility. The entire community should rest assured that we will be business as usual as soon as possible, that they will get their education, that we will be able to host the community here and keep them safe. We want to be looked at as the safe zone for the community during a major event. Okay, so right now we are standing on the San Jacinto fault line, and you know, this could be a major earthquake, and we're standing right here. We'll be swallowed up by the earth.
I've never walked through a fault line. Are you ready to guide me through this fault line?
Yes, let's do it. Let's hope for the best. We don't want to get swallowed up by the earth here.
When the big one hits, will there be a blackout? Will we have cell phone coverage? What about drinking water?
Diamond Valley Lake is Southern California's largest reservoir. It came online in 1999, and it holds about 800,000 acre-feet when full, and that's more water than in Lake Havasu on the Colorado River. At the time of its construction, this was the largest earth-moving project in America.
What are the 2 main sources of water for you before you wholesale it to the different departments?
Our first main source of water is from the Colorado River, and we have a Colorado River aqueduct that traverses the desert for 242 miles. The state owns a big system of reservoirs, aqueducts, and they bring water from the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta up in Northern California down here to Southern California. So when they were looking at places to put a large reservoir like this, one of the important criteria was that it be placed in an area that if we were to have damage to one of the aqueducts, we would have this supply south of the fault line. We keep a minimum supply of 6 months for the 19 million people in our service area in Southern California. We have a redundant network of pipes and plumbing and canals to deliver the water. So if there is a segment that breaks or is damaged by an earthquake, we're able to isolate that piece, sort of like the freeways. If there's an accident on one freeway, you could take side streets or you could divert the traffic around and go on another freeway to get to where you're trying to get to.
What would happen if there's a blackout all of a sudden? The pumps still work?
Everything flows from here or from the reservoirs by gravity through our service area. And so it's nice because gravity works even after an earthquake. But we also have reservoirs here in town that make up for a loss of electric power for the short term. So all of our critical facilities are expected to be operational even after a large earthquake.
In case of a major earthquake, we're safe from a major catastrophe, at least when it comes to like water supplies.
Yes, I would say so.
What can people expect in terms of being able to communicate?
Communication may very well be down. I've been told that texting is better than calling. Mayor Garcetti helped to require that new cell towers that are built in the city of Los Angeles are built to a stronger standard.
So it is likely that we might have a blackout after a large earthquake?
Yeah, it's very probable. If things don't work, then we're going to go back to, the 80s.
We've seen what plans are in place for water, power, and communications. But can hospitals withstand an earthquake? How will the injured evacuate? Are hospitals ready to take in a surge in patients?
We're the only level 1 trauma center in the Inland Empire area. We're a very large facility stretching from San Bernardino all the way down to Murrieta, all the way out into Riverside County, down the 10 towards Palm Springs. We are over 1,000 beds when you take into account our medical center, our children's hospital, our other smaller hospitals throughout the area here. So in the immediate minutes after the earthquake, we really kind of hit the ground running. Roads are going to be down, bridges possibly down, floods. It's going to be a challenge for anybody to get back to the campus. We're going to have to depend on radios. And of course, we do have satellite phones. So this is our mobile telemedicine vehicle. Would you like to take a look inside?
Yeah.
All right, let's go. This vehicle is our backup radio room for our emergency department, which is very important that we can communicate with our other coalition hospital. We have a couple computer stations here. We have obvious radio capabilities, onboard generator. Even if cell phone's down, phone lines are down, internet's down, we can do what we need to do with this vehicle. People are going to need support, medical care. We're going to get a surge in patients. We're going to have community members that are frightened or unsure of what's going on, whether it's an earthquake or an active shooter event. Both rare but do occur. The biggest asset to us here from the community would be their personal preparedness.
On January 17, 1994, a 6.7 magnitude earthquake struck Northridge. This caused 9,000 injuries and 57 deaths. 11 hospitals suffered structural damage and were deemed dangerous or unusable. Not only could they not help the affected communities, but burdened nearby hospitals by having to transfer their inpatients. 5 weeks after Northridge, the California Assembly passed Senate Bill 1953. This requires that emergency rooms and intensive care units be built or retrofitted to withstand a major earthquake. Loma Linda University Medical Center is the latest hospital in California to fulfill SB 1953.
This is the new replacement hospital for Loma Linda University Medical Center. This is going to be 17 stories tall, not including the basement, which is about 220, 240 feet. It'll be the largest, the tallest building in the Inland Empire.
How close is this building to a fault line?
The governing fault line is the San Jacinto Fault, which is less than a mile from here. The fault is so close, the earthquake is so large, it's a 7.9 magnitude earthquake that could happen on that fault. In this building, we have triple friction pendulum isolators, which are giant roller skates, essentially, that the building will float on. This is the triple friction pendulum bearing. You can't see the interior components because it's covered, but essentially 2 concave plates with a hockey puck in the middle. So as the building moves, it moves up this curve, and then gravity brings it back.
These are the ball bearings?
The ball bearings, yeah. So we call them a pendulum because it acts just like a pendulum, and so the building moves up, and then gravity brings it back down. We're putting the whole building on springs so that it isolates it from the ground moving vertically. It's essentially analogous to your car suspension. The vertical motion of the ground would be isolated from the building by the springs. So we would come with a massive spring pack. These are very large springs. And then we bolt them here, and then the building could bounce. So if you're inside the building, you won't perceive it moving as violently as if you were in one of these other buildings. But it actually moves relative to the ground by up to 42 inches. This is the gap, the movement gap that allows the building to move relative to the earth. So you can really see the size of the movement that this building is capable of. So they move relative to each other by about 42 to 48 inches.
You said about 42 inches?
So it's 42 inches at this level, and then it's another 6 inches per level as it goes up.
What other technologies are there that we should pay attention to?
The other new technology was actually a response to the Northridge earthquake in 1994. That's called the side plate moment frame. And what this provides is a stronger moment frame system, which is a beam and a column fixed together that resists the lateral loads. Then we also have fluid viscous dampers, very large shock absorbers to absorb the energy. So what this allows the building to do is it allows it to float on top of the earth. So we have 126 of the base isolators on this shaft, and then we have 104 of the viscous dampers. We couldn't have designed this building without using cloud computing and computer clusters in Silicon Valley. We're using the same clusters that the Ford Motor Company uses to run crash tests on cars. So we ran 110 earthquakes per data set, and every time we redesigned the building, we did another 110 earthquakes. So I think by the time we were done with it, it was 1,000 earthquakes. So when it's finally completed, this will be the safest building in the Inland Empire when that earthquake hits.
We've seen how the fire department, the utilities, the shelters, and the hospitals are taking action. How can we prepare as individuals and as a community? How can you get your home ready, and what can you tell your landlord? Experts tell us that most of the injuries and casualties when the big one strikes will be in the Inland Empire in brick buildings.
Unreinforced masonry buildings are a substantial problem within our county.
That's where the major life loss will be in building collapses, in those buildings.
Find out if your loved ones and you live or work in a building that could collapse. This and more on The Whistle. Are we ready for the big one?
This program has been made possible by the following sponsors. The U.S. Resiliency Council, where our vision is a world in which we not only have a low impact on the environment, but the environment has a low impact on us. The USRC's mission is to create more resilient communities, one building at a time. Learn more at usrc.org. Derived from NASA technology, Taylor Devices develops energy dissipation products in buildings, bridges, and structures around the world, specializing in shock and vibration control since 1955. More information is available at taylordevices.com. DLR Group is a global integrated design firm whose brand promise is to elevate the human experience through design. Learn more at dlrgroup.com. SidePlate Systems provides bolted moment frame design solutions for steel building structures that saves steel and erection time. More information at sideplate.com.